Harrison with you, asking you this question. What if the famous LAPD were actually flying drones around and spying on the public without the public knowing about it? What if $1.5 billion had been given by Homeland Security to police departments to do things that you don't know about? Straight ahead.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
All while ferreting out the bottom line.
On all topics, controversial, bizarre, and taboo. Interviewing movers and shakers, agitators and muckrakers.
But that doesn't answer my question. That is all I'm answering.
With me, Gary Harrison, as your guide.
Harrison with you. This is, of course, Go Harrison, live streaming on a variety of different outlets, plus FMs up and down the west coast of California, east coast of the United States, and here and there in Europe. What about that DOD? That's Department of Defense. What about that LAPD, the famous LAPD, with the new weapons that they possess that you and I didn't know about? But there is one guy who knows a lot about it, and I have to tell you, shock and awe, as Rumsfeld would say, was the state of me learning about this stuff. And let me introduce to you Hamid Khan. He is with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Say that 10 times quickly. And you guys aren't kidding. They're spying the famous LAPD.
Absolutely. I mean, LAPD is, as they always talk about, being a model agency, and they say it in the sense that it serves people, but it's a model agency in exactly what surveillance, spying, and infiltration means. I mean, LAPD has a very long history, and we've been able to map that out going back to almost 1923, that LAPD's infamous Red Squads, which were covert sections way before the FBI and way before COINTELPRO was in existence, which were based out of the Chamber of Commerce and funded by Manufacturers and Retailers Association. So LAPD has a very long and morbid history.
Well, they do, and anyone who's been on the backside of one of their batons or bullets may also bear witness to some of that. Interestingly enough, Bill Clinton, his wife, is running for president, famously. We know this to be true. Mm-hmm. In 1997, signed a defense authorization bill, creating a marriage between the Defense Department and the local cops.
Absolutely.
So this way, we now have tanks. LAUSD, that's the school system of Los Angeles, actually had a tank. Did I just say they had a tank?
You're right.
They had a tank.
They sure
Now, as I understand it, because of your good work, they no longer have a tank.
The surplus military equipment has been given by the Department of Defense to local law enforcement agencies for quite some time, but it was in the mid-90s that when they created this Section 1033 program.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting and quite morbid, I would say, about that program is that when this surplus equipment is given, which could be anywhere from grenade launchers to rocket launchers to minesweepers, and imagine minesweepers on Hollywood Boulevard.
Well, and minesweepers in the school system.
In the school systems,
absolutely.
Makes sense. There's a condition that unless they are used within 12 months, they have to be returned. So the incentives are created to create conditions on the ground where this equipment is being used. What we are seeing increasingly, which is expanding rapidly as well, is how counterterrorism and counterinsurgency tactics are increasingly getting incorporated and codified into local policing. These are all tactics and programs that have been tested and tried on the battlefront. Predictive policing, that is becoming a big thing in the United States.
Or PP, as they call it.
Yeah.
Predictive policing.
Predictive policing. And thanks to UCLA, which has deep fingers in that, the chair of the anthropology department is responsible and is a co-founder of PredPol, short for predictive policing.
One of the things we have are drones. Now, we're not talking Radio Shack for Timmy to take 720p video from his bathtub or jerking off or whatever he's going to do with that. We don't know what the cops are actually doing with it, but what we do know is Seattle. Seattle had these $87,000 drones, and the people rose up and said, you know what, no thanks.
Absolutely.
You're not allowed to hover outside of my window and see what I'm doing. Forget it. So they rose up. So now the Seattle cops have all these drones. So the law says they're not allowed to sell them for cash, but they gave them as a gift to the notorious LAPD and our notorious police chief, who said, big hairy drones, 87 grand, yeah, baby. And then LAPD spun that in PR as a gift. It was a gift from a sister city. And move along, there's nothing to see here. Well, they're seeing a lot, or that's the intent, right? And this is one of your big initiatives.
This was one of our big campaigns in May of 2014. They did receive these Dragonfly X6 drones, through which they had bought through the Urban Area Security Initiative, which is a whole funding stream that the Department of Homeland Security has. So we immediately launched a campaign, Drone-Free LAPD, No Drones LA. And up until now, we've been able to keep them grounded because we filed for public records, and what came back was that they're still sitting at the Inspector General's office. We are demanding that these drones be either completely dismantled or sent back to the manufacturer. The issue is that LAPD claims that they're going to be for a particular purpose. They're going to be in cases of emergency, but mission creep is real.
What kind of emergency?
So
would
if
that be?
there is SWAT-like conditions, if basically where there's a standoff or there's hostage type situations, but then I just mentioned SWAT that came around in the late 60s, but we've seen what happened with SWAT, where initially the purpose was standoffs and hostage conditions, but now there was a report last year that close to 70% of the SWAT deployment is on low-level warrants, for drug dealers. So, which means that mission creep is a term that's used in the military, that the original intent gets sidelined and then you keep on picking it up.
So that would be somebody smokes a joint, you can launch a drone. Poof, done. And once you've done it once, you've set a precedent.
Well, and we also have to remember that last year in August of 2015, the state of North Dakota was the first state that passed a law that now police drones can be equipped with non-lethal weapons. So tasers, rubber bullets, tear gas, and various other things. And we know that these are not non-lethal. Just in 2015, there were 47 deaths as a result of tasers.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the direction that we are heading. So it's really the extensive militarization of the police. Mission creep is real. And obviously, there's a lot of distrust about the LAPD, which this is the second year in a row that they have murdered the most people of any police department in the country. And then just last year's LAPD's own Inspector General audit showed that over 30% of these secret files identified individuals as black. Over 82% were non-whites. And wherever gender was identified, 50% of them were black women.
Well, it's very interesting given that the U.S. population certainly doesn't reflect those demographics. It
Absolutely
should be
not.
the other way around. It should be mostly white people or mostly this or mostly that, but oddly it never is. And this speaks to yet a second level, and we're going to talk about police body cams right now, which in theory sounds great. The cops say, well, we saw you doing this, we clobbered you, it's our word against yours. Okay, let's give them cameras, now it's on tape.
Right.
Great. That sounds good in theory, but that's not what we're looking at here.
Absolutely not. And just in full disclosure, the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition published a 45-page report detailing why we reject the use of body cameras. The body cameras were supposed to be this silver bullet for police accountability, but the body cameras are not looking on police officers. They are outward looking. So it's about a 130-degree angle where they pick up all the footage. So it's not really on the officers themselves. Secondly, I think it's also critical to know that how they are being used as well. So, for example, in Los Angeles, at the LAPD, their policy is that based upon their own, and that's where the interfacing comes in, based upon their own facial recognition technology, all background footage can be used for evidence. So you and I could be, so the police officer may stop somebody taking footage with the body camera. We can be walking in the background. We are basically suspects as well in that footage.
Based on the reasonable blah, 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 blah that you mentioned
Observed
earlier.
behavior,
Wait, it's
reasonably
interesting.
indicative.
You come on the show, I forced you to sign a release form saying that we can actually use your image.
Absolutely.
But the police don't need a release form.
No,
if
they
you're
don't.
trapped in their video, it is an implied release.
So basically the argument is that it's a public space.
Yeah.
So you don't have the protections of the Constitution when you're in public space. So
I'm
this
sure
is
Jefferson would have loved that.
And then, of course, with the LAPD, one of the other issues is that as far as the use of the body camera is that it's not only they recommend, but they require their officers to review the footage before they file their report.
Is that right?
Yes.
Before they file their
Before they
report.
file their
So the police should police the police to make sure that the police are self-policing.
Absolutely. And something that we had said in the very beginning, it's interesting that just last month or 2 months ago, Temple University out of Pennsylvania, they came out with a report on body cameras stating that police shootings have gone up since they've been using body cameras. And the reason they're saying is that now, because in police killings, a lot of them are in policy. It's basically they have the license to kill. So in essence, the body cameras are now footage that justify the policy as well. So it's really a twisted concept where now we are looking at that it was supposed to be officer misconduct, but yet again, what we are seeing is that it's being used. And what's also, your folks would be interested to know, that when the Los Angeles Police Commission submitted its report on body cameras to the City Council, it was a 30-page report. There was not a single sentence about accountability. It was all about how the city can reduce liability with the use of these body cameras.
Oh, okay.
So when you go to some of their manufacturers' website, like Viview, it says, for cops, by cops.
Hamid Khan is with Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And, now I'm going to be uneasy forever.
It's
But
about
okay.
power, not paranoia. That's the whole
Power,
idea.
not paranoia. I like that. Thank you so much, my
You're
friend.
welcome.